So we'll just start from the beginning. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, like it never happened before, to Grant Source Live. I am the founder and the executive director for Grant Source, where we help companies and organizations find money to fund their mission. And there's something I want you to think about. Have you ever been in a place where you wanted to do something for your business, or you needed to hire that key person, but couldn't do it because you simply didn't have the budget? We have Susan Brittain of Brittain Consulting that's going to be on today, that's going to tell us about some of the projects she has worked on and written proposals to help organizations get grants to fund their projects, their programs, their passions to move forward. But before we get with Susan, we are going to go to a few of our valued sponsors, and we appreciate them for sponsoring this show. Our first sponsor is going to be Vistaprint, and Vistaprint, for those of you that don't know, are offering our members 20% off any new purchases. And I want to show everybody this because we just got these made. I'm proud of them. We just got these handy dandy cards shaped like a phone done from Vistaprint, and we got 20% off. Our other sponsor is FedEx. They are offering 50% off to our entire community for any printing or shipping services. And for those of you that think that there are no for-profit grants out there, FedEx actually has a grant going on right now, contest for for-profit businesses, where the first prize gets $25,000. We're applying. You can find it in the app. We want to share it with the family, but that is a grant that's going on right now. Without further ado, Susan, we appreciate you going through our technical difficulties with us. Nothing is ever perfect, just like writing a proposal, but tell us about yourself. We want to hear a little about the projects that you've worked on, the passion behind what you do, and first and foremost, why we do this show. I'm gonna pinch myself, you pinch yourself. You're a real person, aren't you?
Absolutely.
So tell us where you're from, Susan.
Well, I'm in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Okay.
It used to be the tobacco capital of the world. R.J. Reynolds Tobacco started here. Nice. And now we're known as the City of Arts and Innovation. So we've completely flipped from manufacturing to innovation.
Beautiful. And did you grew up there? Is that where you started your business as well?
Yes, I was born in Washington, D.C., but my family moved here when I was 2. So okay, for all intents and purposes, I'm from here. Okay.
Excellent, excellent. Winston-Salem, that is, and I'm in Houston, that's Chris Paul country, for those of you that don't know.
Absolutely, yes.
He is right now, he's on the Houston Rockets, and they're doing very well. So, Susan, first and foremost, we want to thank you. We're eternally grateful to have you on the show. Tell us, how'd you get started in grant writing? Because there's a common misconception that, grants aren't really real. Are they out there? Can I really use them to fund my business? And where are all of the resources? What does a grant writer look like? So there you are. Tell us.
Well, I got started doing this kind of on a fluke. I was working at we have a medical center here in Winston-Salem, and I had someone teach me how to write grants. And, being the nerd that I am, that appealed to me, the technical writing. And it really is a skill. I don't think people realize how much of a skill grant writing is, because you can't just sit down and write a grant and expect someone to give you money, especially if you don't understand what it is they're looking for and what it is you're looking for. So, and I've been doing this now for probably 25 years.
Wow.
But I just, as far as my business, I've had this business for a while, but I just went into it full time the first of this year.
Okay. Nice. And you've had 25 years of experience, so you've seen a lot of different proposals.
Yes, a lot, from federal to state to local to foundation to corporate. I've seen them all.
Now, let's dig into that because there's a lot of different areas, and we try to break that down and give education, and we'll show your listing later where they can find you and get specific advice to you. But if we're an organization, where should we start? Because people usually don't even know where to start.
Well, if you're a small organization, it's a lot harder. The larger organizations usually have their own grant writers and researchers. But the first thing that you need to do is learn how to research for grants. I think a big mistake that people make is trying to fit a program that they have into a grant where it doesn't fit. Okay. So it's learning what's out there, visiting. If you're in some place, we have quite a few foundations and nonprofits in Winston-Salem. It's visiting with them and getting to know them, because really in the end, it's all about relationships. Mm-hmm. And that's how you get the grants. And if they know a face and a name, then they're more likely to fund you. But you really have to work on figuring out what it is you need money for, and then finding a grant that fits that, not the other way around. You're trying to fit yours into a grant. It doesn't work ever.
Interesting. But you need to have that established program first. That way you can find a grant that meets that, right? Not the other way around.
Well, you need to plan. That's the big thing that I see around people who are doing grants is they don't plan for them. And they think they have an idea, but they don't really flesh it out. And then when they go to meet a funder or to apply for a grant, they're kind of lost because they can't really explain what it is they need, and they've gone to the wrong funder. So planning is a big key as well.
So it's not only planning, it's relationship is huge, right? What's the saying? A good attorney knows the law, a great attorney knows the judge. So you really need to know those grant sources and those funders and find them and start to build that relationship.
That's very true. And some funders the really large foundations don't have the time to meet with folks a lot of times, but your local ones do, your state ones do. And that's really how you get the money. It really is all about the relationships, and it takes time. You can't just expect to want a grant and then get it right away. Now, sometimes that happens, but not very often.
Okay. And in your experience, because that's some of the questions that we get, and for those of you that don't know, in our grant source community, you can ask, once you become a member of the community, you can ask any questions you want, and experts like Susan can answer your questions. One of the questions that we get often is, how long does it take to get a grant, right? Right.
Well, and that depends. I mean, if you're using a local foundation, it can take as little as a few months. If you are doing something at the state level or the federal level, I encourage people to plan at least 6 months in advance, sometimes a year. Mm-hmm. And it also depends these days on who you're collaborating with. Most of the funders do not have enough money anymore to give to just individual entities. So the more collaborations you can do, the more likely it is that you'll get a grant.
And when you talk about collaboration, because that's one of the things, we live in a instant gratification society. So we say, oh, grant, I need a grant tomorrow. Well, you really need a plan for that, because it's not going to happen. But when they do, some of these federal grants, they're multi-million-dollar grants. Right.
And that brings up another point that, let's say you get a grant. Do you even know how to manage it? Do you know how to do the reporting? Do you know how to keep up with the financial piece of it? And that's a big piece of what I teach folks and what I work with folks on is grants management is huge. You've got the grant. Now what do I do?
Yep. Because at some point, they don't just give you the grant, slap you on the back and tell you to go get them. They want to see that you're carrying out what that grant was proposed for, right? And
right, and you know they will take money back. I've actually seen that happen if you don't do what they ask you to do. So that's another consideration when you're doing grants is do you know, can you keep up with the reporting? Can you keep up with the financial piece of it? And, you know, that's where a lot of smaller organizations really have problems.
yeah. And so how long has, taken a step back, usually when organizations think about grants, they think about, okay, let me get donations, let me go sell my product, my service, some tickets. Grants are a good opportunity, but a lot of people and businesses, organizations, companies overlook them because they think it's such a hassle. And it can be, but that's where you come in.
Right, right. And, you know, it's also, if you've got a good idea, I think that funders are really looking for innovation these days and, you know, out of the box thinking and how can you do this differently than what anyone else is doing? And, you know, it's always like a roll of the dice in many ways, but the more you work at it and the more you can explain what it is you're doing and what you want to do, the better chances you have. It's like doing an elevator pitch for a business. If you were standing in front of somebody that was going to give you capital, could you tell them in 3 minutes what it is that you want to do with your nonprofit?
Okay. And so you guys have been in existence for almost 25 years. You just started full time. How are you guys? What's your formation? Are you a nonprofit yourself? Are you an LLC?
I'm a sole proprietor right now. I've been debating about whether to become a nonprofit because being able to be a financial sponsor for other nonprofits. Nice. Which is, there are larger companies in the bigger cities that do that for folks. And it's a real need, but it's also a lot of work and it's also, you have a lot of liability. So right. I'm going to be doing a lot of research on that before I decide to do it.
Okay. And in doing that, what are some of and these are other questions we see that we're getting from the community. What are some of the other grants that you've seen organizations and companies actually secure?
Well, I've seen them, a lot of them. For example, I worked with an organization here in Winston-Salem, WinstonNet, which puts computers in public computer centers in high-risk neighborhoods.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And they got a federal grant, which I worked on with a lot of other folks that were involved. But we got enough money, almost $300,000 for 40 computer libraries. So that was successful. I've worked with youth organizations that have gotten monies. I worked with the Cherokee Nation here in North Carolina with the Cherokee Preservation Foundation, and we're able to offer acting classes to people from the Cherokee Nation one summer. So there's a lot out there, and I don't think you should discount grants, but you also have to keep in mind that most funders only give you a grant for 1 to 3 years. And so they've got to be able to see that you're going to be able to sustain this project after that money runs out. And that's another big thing that people don't really focus on is, okay, we've got this great project, but how are we going to keep it going?
Yep. And that's a good point because there have been people in our community, and we have made it advantageous, right? Because you can use the database, all the databases of both grants, resources, grant sources, get information. And it's very cost effective to be an annual member. It's less than $100 a year for everything. But we've gotten questions in the community. Why don't I just, come in for a month or a few days and get what I need and leave? It's kind of like saying, I've taken my shower for the year. It's a continuous thing. And talk to us about, you just talked about funding. It's an ongoing process for a thriving organization, right? It's not a one-time thing.
Right, that's exactly right. And I'm constantly learning new things. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, but there's always new stuff out there, and I'm a perpetual student. But also with your grants too, since so much money is drying up and you are looking at sustainability, who else can you work with? Mm-hmm. Who else is doing something similar or maybe different, but you'd like to bring them in on what you're doing. There's just so many different ways to look at grants these days, and also to look at how you can work with other people. And that's where you're going to be successful. The more that you can work with others and the more that you are involved in other things, the better off.
Yeah. So collaboration is definitely key. And a lot of organizations believe, okay, well, I have to do that myself, and it's just not the case.
No, a lot of time, and one of the things too that most boards don't realize is that they're also responsible for helping with those types of things. Okay. Boards don't realize that when you go on a board that you are, you really are responsible for fundraising. That's one of your duties. And so many organizations don't really make that clear to board members. So, there's all types of ways to get help and to be involved and to collaborate. It's a learning curve. It really is a learning curve.
And you brought up a good point. And not next week, but the week after, we'll have a gentleman on that specifically focuses on fixing your board and making sure they have the right expectation, because that's important. Your board is there not to just be a bump on the log, right? For fundraising. They're there to help grow your organization.
Right. And a lot of, when you start talking about fundraising to board members, they're like, well, wait a minute, I didn't sign on for that.
That's not what I'm here for, yeah.
Right, because they're not told up front that that's a part of their duties. And it really is hurting organizations that don't specify that. I'm on 2 boards myself right now. And the first thing they told me was, you will be fundraising. And I said, good.
That's why we brought you in, right?
Right.
And so last week we had Mike Chamberlain on, the CEO of the Grant Professional Association. Right. He talked about his organization, and you're a part of GPA as well, correct?
I am, and I'm also part of the North Carolina chapter. So we have an organization here in North Carolina where we meet on a fairly regular basis for development, to talk, and just get to know one another and help each other out.
Excellent. And as far as tips, you gave us some great tips on collaboration, on relationship, how that's key. But what drives you, Susan? Why are you so passionate about grant writing? Why are you on multiple boards and get up every day to fundraise?
Well, I believe that we're all one, and I believe that the world's in a lot of trouble, and everything that I can do and work with folks who want to make a change. And I've been doing this for a long time, and everybody says, oh, you get tired after a while. But that's what we're here for, is to help folks make a change and to do things for our communities that make them better places to live. So you can do it in your community, I work with folks all over, so helping their communities and helping people realize their own passions and their own strengths.
And I like to ask this to every member because it's not about the money. It's really about the impact and what the money can do. What are some of the greatest impacts that you have seen through your grant proposal writing?
Well, the WinstonNet one that I mentioned, I worked on one for a couple of years called the Community Innovation Lab, which was actually funded by the Kresge Foundation, and it was looking at whether or not if you introduce arts into social issues, arts and artists, whether or not that makes a difference. You know, does art help with social issues? And by and large, yes, it does. So, I mean, you know, everything that I've ever worked on has had some kind of an impact, even if it was a small one. It's had some kind of an impact on the people working on it or the organization, and that's why you do this. You know, it's not for the money, like you said.
And we'll get to that because I know you have something special that you want to showcase the community. But just tell us, how'd you find GrantSource and how, because you are one of our earliest premium annual members, and I wasn't knocking on your door. You found us. What intrigued you about GrantSource, and what do you like best about it?
Well, I think you all are the first folks that have really tried to look at an app that puts everything together in one place. And, you know, I do a lot of research and ran across GrantSource. And I think you and I had talked a couple of times, but I really think that what you're doing is so needed. And I also think that, you know, it can only help people because there's so much just in one place that folks can get.
We appreciate that. No, thank you. And we're not perfect. We strive to get better every day. And our commitment is our platform will always be better the next day than it was before. So I want to go to one. Before we get to your offer, I'm going to showcase this on the screen. Half of what we do is showcase and make sure that people know that what's a grant writer look like? You're looking at one. You're not a unicorn. You're a real person. But the other thing that we try to do for each one of our guests is figure out what you're looking for. I know you came on a good research platform, but what can our community help you with, Susan? How can we help?
Well, I think that, of course, meeting new folks and getting new business, but also just being a resource for me as well. Because like I said, I never stop learning, and I'm always interested in what's going on in philanthropy and in communities. So I think it's mutual. You know, we help each other.
Excellent. And that's a good segue. You have an event coming up, in June to help?
Right. It's not up yet because registration isn't open, but I am doing a Grant Writing 101 class through the Wake Forest University here in Winston-Salem and a nonprofit called Hands On Northwest North Carolina. And that'll be all day on June 21st. I think the cost is $60, but once registration is open, I will put it on the site. So if there are people in this area or, you know, around North Carolina or even Virginia that want to come down and come to it, you certainly can. And I'm also open for doing these types of classes anywhere. So.
Excellent. And education is key. And that's one of the things that we focus on first and foremost. Before anybody even has to become a member of the community, we try to start with education because a lot of people don't even know, or a lot of organizations brand new don't even know to start. They don't even know that there's different levels of grants at federal, city, county, state, that there's different types of foundations, public versus private. You can find all of that in our Knowledge Center. And once you have a base level of knowledge and you find a grant that you actually qualify for, but you're a little overwhelmed, that it's happened to us. We're overwhelmed with, how to write the proposal. That's when you reach out to Susan. And I'm going to show this offer that she has, because grant writer, the other common misconceptions are, okay, those big organizations can only afford grants because they are paying those grant writers, hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars. And we're a brand new organization. We just don't have that. But that is not the case. I'll show you right here, Susan. And as you can see in our app, this is our newest version. And if you're an organization, you can have multiple members, and this is the GPA's one, but you can have a branded app with your logo in there. Getting to Susan, if you go into our community offers section, which is our pretty much, it's like Groupon for business owners and nonprofits to do business with each other. But that's how our community gives back and is able to work with each other. So if you go to our community offers section, I know her title is free consultation. You can actually find Susan in our app. Who is that gorgeous young lady there? You can get with Susan and she will give you a free consultation, no questions asked. I mean, her regular rate is $75 an hour, but she is willing to talk to you about your programs, about your projects that you have going on. You can click right there in the app and redeem it. She'll get a notification that'll be in your redeem offers, and you can set up a conversation with Susan. Now, later on in the year, we'll even have, this is kind of a premonition and futures that you're seeing, you'll be able to set up a conference in our app with Susan directly. But as of now, you can redeem it, you can see Susan, and you can get your questions answered absolutely free. And she has helped. Susan is a modest person. She's not going to say this, but she is one of the top grant writers in the nation. She's part of GPA, and she has helped secure millions of dollars worth of grants for organizations just like yours. So if everybody needs a little help, we can't do it ourselves. It's all about collaboration, like Susan said. It's all about the relationship. You don't have to do it by yourself. You get overwhelmed. It's happened to us, happens to every organization. Be good at what you're good at, and you can collaborate with the community on everything else. So we're up almost out of time. Susan, if you can you give our community just one tip before you leave, to leave our community with?
Well, just keep at it. It's, you're doing good work, and, sometimes it doesn't feel that way, or it doesn't feel like you're getting recognized for it, but keep at it because we all need each other.
Excellent. And again, I want to thank you, Susan, for being on our show. I had to call your secretary multiple times because I know you're booked everywhere. But no, thank you. I want to thank our sponsors. I appreciate Vistaprint and FedEx for sponsoring this episode. And if you are looking for a grant, which all of us are, check out FedEx Grants. They have an active grant right now. You can find it in the app. And I'll leave everybody with this. It's not about the money. It's all about the impact. Thank you. Have a blessed day.